Hello, Mathematicians! It's 10:27 p.m. sa oras natin sa desktop computer. Yan, gabi na talaga dito. Okay, so after 48 long years, ay makakapag-record na naman tayo ng tutorial video. This time, ang ating topic ay Deriving the Quadratic Formula. At yan po ay magagawa natin sa tulong ng completing the square method. We start by writing the quadratic equation or the standard form of the quadratic equation, and that is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And kagaya ng ating ginagawa kapag we use completing the square method to solve for the roots of a quadratic equation, we have to isolate the terms containing the variable. So it means itong dalawang to, the quadratic and the linear terms, are to be isolated on this left side, and this means this constant term has to be transposed to the other side. So magiging siyang ax squared plus bx equals 0 minus c. And this right side here can just be simplified as negative c. Itong nasa left side, kopyahin lang natin. Ayan. And the next step is to make sure that the coefficient in the quadratic term is just 1. And we can do that by dividing both sides of the equation by a. So, we are going to have now x squared plus b over a affix x, and then equals negative c over a pa rin yan. So again, what happens is, yung quadratic term natin naging x squared na lang nga kasi a divided by a is equal to 1. Of course, our premise here is that a cannot be equal to 0. And then, yung b divided by a can just be written as b over a, and then we affix x. So, ganito yung ating ayos so that we can already see that the coefficient in the linear term is b over a. And then, the next step is to determine what we can add to the left side to make it a perfect square trinomial. And of course, whatever we add to that left side should also be added to the right side. So what do? We take the coefficient of x, which in this case is b over a. Ayan. So let's just use the next frame para mas maraming space natin. So i-write ko muna x squared plus b over a of x equals negative c over a. Ayan. So again, we have to make use of the coefficient in the linear term, which is b over a. What do we do with it? We divide it by 2 and then square the result. So we follow the GEMDAS. We perform the operation or operations inside the parentheses, then we do exponentiation. Okay? So what is b over a divided by 2? Ayan, pwede natin isulat yung b over a divided by 2 ng ganito. At baka lang sakali, hindi na natin kabisado ang pag-divide ng numbers where at least 1 is a fraction. Again, I will be discussing now with you a shortcut or a technique that you can remember to perform operations, to perform division of numbers where at least one of the numbers is a fraction. Okay, KFC method. Okay, ano yung K sa KFC na yan? Keep the first number. So it means we have to just copy lang the first number or the dividend. So b over a pa din yan. And then yung f is flip, meaning reciprocate. Reciprocate or flip the second number. Teacher Prince, 2 lang naman yung second number. How do we flip it? Remember, kapag integer yan or whole number at walang nakasulat na denominator, automatic, meron siyang denominator na 1. So 2 is 2 over 1. O edi mas madaling makita na it can be flipped or reciprocated as 1 over 2. So magiging siyang 1/2. So the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. So yun yung f, flip. And then what is c? C is change the operation to multiplication. So from having a division sign, we will now have here a multiplication sign. So yung dot na lang. Or ganyan dot. Okay? And let's just multiply the numerators and then put the result over the product of the denominator. So we have b times 1 is b over a times 2 is 2a. So ibig na sabihin yan, yung ba over 2 is equal to b over 2a. And do not forget, we still have to enclose this in a pair of parentheses kasi meron pang exponentiation na gagawin. Okay? So, we have to square, or we will apply here, power of a quotient to distribute the exponent 2 to each member of the fraction. So, b raised to 2 and then 2a quantity squared. So, you have b squared over 2a raised to 2, or 2a quantity squared will become 4a squared. Ibig lang sabihin yan, ito nakuha nating b squared over 4a squared, ang idadagdag natin sa kaliwa at sa kanan para maging perfect square trinomial yung ating left side. Kaya nga siya completing the square, we will have to complete the square. Make the polynomial there on that side a perfect square trinomial. So, gawin natin. So, i-rewrite ko ulit ang equation natin. So, x squared plus b over a of x tapos equals negative c over a. At ano nga yung dapat nating i-add to the left and to the right side? B squared over 4a squared. So, ibahin ko yung kulay. So, plus b squared over 4a squared. Ganun din dito. B squared over 4a squared. Okay. So, ibig lang sabihin ito nasa left side is already a perfect square trinomial and it can be now expressed as a square of a binomial. So, what is this binomial we have to write inside the parentheses? So, the first term in the binomial should be the square root of x squared, which is x. The last term should be the square root of the constant term here, or the last term. And by the way, the last term, okay, not the constant term. Okay, so what is the square root of b squared over 4a squared? That is just b over 2a. Kasi ang square root ng b squared ay b, while ang square root ng 4a squared ay 2a. Now, what should be the sign in between these two terms, or in between these two? We have to copy lang the sign in the middle term of this PST. So, plus sign lang yan. Okay? So, we're done expressing the PST as a square of a binomial. So, tinatawag ko siyang SOAB. Okay, now, we have to simplify this right side here. What do you think should we do? We can use the process, or we can employ that process or procedure where we find first the LCD and then rename the given fractions if necessary. So, ano ang LCD ng a at ng 4a squared? So, LCD ng fractions, not LCD ng mga to. LCM. The LCM of the denominators will be the LCD of the fractions involved. So, we have to determine LCM of a and 4a squared. Okay? So, since the other numerical coefficient involved here is just 1, yung coefficient ng a dito, which is 1 nga, it means the LCM of these two should be equal to 4 times the LCM of a and a squared. Okay? So, ibig sabihin lang, 4 times, ano? So, a and a squared, it so happens that they have the same base. So, we copy that common base, which is a. And then, raise it to whatever the highest exponent of a in this set. And that is 2. So, ibig sabihin, 4 times a squared, 4a squared. And it so happens that this 4a squared na nakuha nating LCM, that will be LCD of this, is just the denominator of this second fraction here. So, ibig sabihin, hindi kailangan i-rename itong second fraction. Ito lang negative c over a. So, negative c over a, when renamed as a fraction na mayroon denominator na 4a squared, ano yung numerator niya? So, how do we get the new numerator? If this is the new denominator, we divide lang the LCD, or the new denominator, by the old denominator. So, 4a squared divided by a is just 4a. And then, multiply the result by the old numerator. So, 4a times negative c is negative 4ac. Ibig sabihin, this square of a binomial here should be equal to negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. So, what can we do next? we can just simplify muna the right side. Kasi itong nasa left side, okay na yan. So, since parehas na sila ng denominator, we can make use of a single fraction bar and then copy the common denominator 4a squared. And then just write on top of this fraction bar the numerators. Negative 4ac, including the operation sign plus sign, and then b squared. Ayan. So, i-rewrite natin iyan sa kabilang frame. So, we have x plus quantity b over 2a, quantity squared, is equal to negative 4ac plus, what is that kasi? Ayan, b squared. All over 4a squared. Ayan, pwede nating ibahin yung ayos ng numerator natin. Okay? So, pwede siya maging b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. At yan nga ay equal dun sa SOAB natin. X plus quantity b over 2a. Yung binomial. Okay? So, kapag ganito na yung itsura ng ating equation, this is actually of the form x squared equals k, where x here is a binomial and then the right side is a constant. Okay? So, we can apply na square root property. So, we just write x plus b over 2a equals positive or negative square root of this quantity here, b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. And bago tayo mag-transpose, let's see what can we do to simplify this. Yung numerator, ayan, parang mahirap siyang hanapan ng square root, no? So it might as well stay under that radical sign. Okay? And then yung 4a squared, that is a perfect square quantity because 4 is a perfect square number. A squared, it is a variable raised to a positive even exponent. So, ibig sabihin, yan ay, or the exponent there is an even integer. Therefore, yan ay perfect square number. So, anong square root ng 4a squared? 2a. So, magiging yang x plus b over 2a equals positive or negative square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And what can we do? Dito na lang tayo sa space na to. We can transpose na yung positive b over 2a as negative b over 2a sa right-hand side. And mas maigi siyang ikabit na before the plus or minus sign. So magiging x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. At ayan, parehas naman silang ng denominator na 2a, ibig lang sabihin, we can further rewrite this expression using a single fraction bar and the common denominator is 2a. And then just copy the numerator. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And this right here, i-highlight natin, is the quadratic formula. Ayan, quadratic formula. The x here represents the roots of a quadratic equation. The b, a, and c there are the coefficients of the quadratic equation. And of course, that is when the equation is in standard form. Okay? And take note, bilugan ko din siya, yung b squared minus 4ac dito, that is under the radical sign, is called the discriminant of the quadratic equation. Again, yung b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant of the quadratic equation. So hanggang dyan muna yung ating video because it's just focused on the derivation of the quadratic formula. The other ones, or maybe just one, will be devoted to discussing how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So, bye for now.